Good afternoon. What a great group we have here today. We're going to be setting a new chapter in history here for Valley Christian Schools, and all of you that are here have signed up and are going to be part of this new chapter in history. And it's called the President's Business Challenge, and we've never done this before, and this is going to give all of you in this room that are participating in this an awesome opportunity to engage in something that I don't think has ever been done at a high school. And in fact, I'm not sure how many colleges even do this. I know some schools have done this at the college level, but certainly at the high school level, this is brand new. It's my pleasure to introduce to you, if you have not already met her, is Mrs. Kim, and she is heading up the President's Business Challenge. She is the director of the President's Business Challenge, something that Dr. Doherty has put together. And working very closely with her is her husband, and she's going to introduce him. He's your guest speaker here for today. So would you give Hannah Kim a big, warm welcome?
Thank you for coming. It's great to see all the students here today, and we hope that this will be a start of a great speaker series that you could take advantage of and learn about entrepreneurship. I have the privilege of introducing the first speaker, Danny Kim. He's the CTO and co-founder of Full Armor Corporation, and Full Armor has been around for 27 years, longer than, well, we've known each other. Full Armor services Fortune 500 companies in software security, and Mr. Kim has a passion for technology and education. So he works full-time for Full Armor, and he also works full-time for Valley Christian as the Associate Director of the AMZ program. He's a father of two lovely boys, 5th grade and 7th grader here at Valley, and also happens to be my husband. I gave him a very tall order. I said, this is the first President's Challenge speaker series, so you gotta do a home run. So here's Danny Kim.
Thanks.
Thank you.
You know, she actually had to take notes on introducing me. But anyways, I've had the privilege of reading some of your applications, talking to some of you about your business ideas, and I have to say I'm just so excited for the opportunities that you guys have in being able to realize some of the dreams you have in starting something. I want to just start with the slide of the opportunity that's in front of you. This kind of captures the period that we live in. So what this gives you is how long it took for each of these mediums to get to 50 million users, okay? It took radio 38 years to get to 50 million users. It took television 13 years to get to 50 million users. It took the internet just only 4 years to reach 50 million users. And Facebook, our favorite, 3.5 years. And then the Draw Something app took 50 days to reach 50 million users, all right? Can you imagine the reach you have? And actually, one of my most favorite entrepreneurs, the model with which I run my company, is actually Jesus. I think he's the best entrepreneur ever because he started with, 12 people, and he grew an organization to 2.2 billion people who claim to be, who are Christians today, right? It took him, 2,000 years? If you do the math, 2.2 billion, 2,000 years, that averages out to about 1 million users per year, which means it would have taken him 50 years on average to get to 50 million users. You have this opportunity to reach 50 million users in literally days, right? The opportunity in front of you is huge. And you know, when I was dating my wife, Hannah, or at the time, my girlfriend, we had to actually write because I was living overseas. And everything was just written, handwritten letters and notes. I feel like we were doing Morse code at some point because the long distance charges were so expensive. The pace at which you can actually realize your dreams and expand your influence is huge. Now, the basics of starting a company, starting an organization, making it successful. We're going to go through all of the basics with you. Through the workshops, we're going to teach you how to write a business plan, how to do financial forecasting, how to manage your money, how to do strategic planning and analysis, all the basics. However, that's only one part. And if everybody did the basics correctly, then you would think everyone would succeed. However, in most businesses, actually there's statistics on startups. In the first year, 25 to 30% of startups fail. So these numbers are not in your favor. By the second year, that goes to 35%. By fifth year, it's 50%. By the seventh year, you're 70% likely to have failed, right? Companies just don't last. And what's the key to making a lasting company? Well, after 27 years of running our company, after 27 years of running a business based on, as far as our business partners were concerned, we started this company based on pure Christian principles. We narrowed it down to 3 core principles that will help you make a lasting company, help you make a lasting organization. And this not only applies to a company or your idea or your organization that you want to create, but it applies to you individually as a person. If you can follow these guidelines, you as a person will become more successful, okay? The first one is passion. Now, this is gonna date me and put me on the corner of a geek, and that's kind of essentially what I was. When I was growing up in high school, I was a geek. I loved computers. And my parents spent, I think it was like $1,700 to buy this Atari 800. And at the time, it had 16K of memory. I don't know if that even says anything to you. 16, your cell phone has something like 1,000 times more memory and processing power than this thing had. And it was $1,700, right? But this launched my passion into computers. And that passion turned into my ability to get accepted into a nice college, right? What was interesting is, after I graduated, I actually do a lot of the student interviews that are applying for Cornell. And actually, my wife's a graduate of Harvard, so she also does Harvard interviews as well. And we actually compare notes to see who gets the best students. But also, what our colleges were telling us what to look for in the candidates. And what was really interesting is they were telling us to look for the exact same thing. And there's 2 questions we were supposed to answer in the interview. The first one is, does the applicant show passion? That's the key. Does the applicant show passion, and how have they realized on that passion? Have they actually taken steps to make that passion a reality, right? And so when I was at Cornell, without even knowing this, the passion was driving us, and I met other friends of mine that were just as passionate, and we decided, hey, let's start a company, let's start a business, let's start something together. Very similar to where you are right now. If you're thinking about an idea, if you sign up for the President's Business Challenge, it's exactly where you are, except you're 4 to 5 years ahead of me, or where I was in college. And so when we decided to start a company, we put our heads together. We wrote a piece of software that did resume matching for Cornell. We actually sold it to Cornell. And then we decided, hey, let's enter in. There was at Cornell at the time, there was a graduate class level class called entrepreneurship, coincidentally. And what it did was it gave you the ability to test out your idea, and then throughout the whole course, you would learn how to run a business. And then at the end, they would invite all of the major alumni of Cornell from the business world to sit and judge as a judging panel. And the winner of that competition would win $5,000 and also the notoriety that you are the #1 business plan idea. As undergraduates, because it was a graduate level course, we had to get permission to enter. And we entered, And one of the things about passion is it makes you fearless. It may be a little bit naive, but it just makes you fearless. And that's one of the key aspects of being an entrepreneur, is you have to be fearless. You have to just follow your passion and say, you know what, I'm gonna go for it, even if I'm gonna fail, right? And when we went through that course, we were struggling because it was a graduate level course, and we were a bunch of sophomore undergrads, really, again, not knowing what we're doing. And I remember at the end of the class, they invited all the business leaders, alumni of Cornell, and they're sitting down as judges. These are captains of industries, very similar to what you'll be doing. And they were judging, and they asked for volunteer, who will be the first group to go? And nobody wanted to go first, right? But of course, passionate, naive group as we were, we decided, we'll go first. So we raised our hands, and our group went to go first. And we stood up on the stage in front of all our peers. It was a class of 120, 130 folks in front of the judging panel, and we presented our idea. We had our business plan. We did a semblance of some financial model, whatever. And we were just torn apart. We were just literally, they were tearing all of our aspects of our business plan completely apart. They're like, you didn't think about this, you didn't do this well, you didn't plan this correctly, how do you expect to go to market with this? And literally we stood there and we were just receiving all of these criticisms, and that's the point where you could have shrunk and failed and decided, you're gonna shrink away, but we didn't. And because we stood there and we stood our ground, the teacher, the professor, decided to give us a second chance. He said, you know what? Since you were bold enough to go first, I'm gonna let you go last again to do your presentation one more time. And after everybody did their presentation, we came back, we regrouped, and we literally redid all our presentation based on all the feedback we got, literally within a matter of hours. And we represented our presentation, and we won. We were the first undergraduates to ever win the entrepreneurial class competition. And only because, again, we had a passion, and we had a passion that made us fearless, right? The second core attribute is partners, and I can't stress this enough. Now, this kind of dates us too. I'm not that much older than you were right now, because this is actually our sophomore year in college. These are my roommates from college. And if you look at, if you're in the stages of forming your team, this is a very interesting look at the dynamics, right? He's a varsity wrestler. He was majoring in the hotel management. He was a hotelie. We would joke that he knew how to clean the toilets and cook, and he'd actually go to Cookies with Clark, which is one of his classes. And so he was our sales and marketing guy, right? Bob was our political science major. He had no skills whatsoever at the time, but he was great at operations. What we found out later on is he absolutely loved operations, and then he eventually went and got a law degree. So he became our chief counsel, and so he became our COO and our legal counsel. And if you can't guess by now, that's me. Younger with a lot less gray, but I was a technology guy. What's interesting about this dynamic is the three of us, each brought a different skill set and talent to the mix, right? And that's really key in forming a group or a company or an organization. You gotta make sure you get people that each bring a different set of talents. Now, what's interesting, and the reason why, if you looked at this picture, and if I told you 27 years later, these three guys will be together, the odds would be completely against you or against us, and it was. The thing that bound us together, that kept us together, was that the three of us, had one ultimate goal in mind. The three of us all became Christians in college, in Cornell, and we all had one goal in mind, and that is, let's find a Christian company or a company based on Christian principles, and let's see if that can work. And that was it. Now, this was taken, so one of the things that we did, we kind of knew, at least we're smart enough to know that when we graduated college, we didn't have an experience to go and start our own company full time. So actually one of us, Rich, the guy in the middle, actually stayed with the company out of his parents' basement for 4 years with no pay. And the other two, me and Bob, went off to work for other companies. This was the first day after I quit my job. I was actually the general manager of the European division of a large company. And when the company was ready to receive me, I quit my job, gave up a huge salary, and that was my first day with zero pay. And that was one of the happiest times of my life. So it's not money, I can tell you, that makes you happy. Right? If you find a purpose, you find a good set of partners, and you work towards that purpose, it's going to make you happy. And here, this was taken recently. This is 27 years later. A lot less hair, a lot more gray, but just as happy. And what was the differentiator for us in the way we partnered with each other, and the thing that bound us together, the glue in between, was the principles with which we ran the company and the way we treated each other, and the principles with which we treated our employees. Now, what's very interesting is, obviously, for us, going back to biblical principles on how to treat others was the key cornerstone of how we ran our company. Everything from being fair, no favoritisms, being the first being the last being the first. We actually ran a company where we would be the last ones to get paid. There was obviously a lot of times when we would run out of money, and you will experience that at one point or another, and we would be the last ones to get paid. I can tell you, 27 years later, we have never missed a paycheck to our employees. But there are times that we went without pay for 2 years. I think that was the longest stretch we ever gone. And that means we would eat ramen and macaroni and cheese and really skimper down, but we made sure our employees were paid. And you know what? They saw that. And they saw the benefit and the principle behind that. And even though they may not have been Christians themselves, they saw the value of being Christian. And as a result, our employees have been with us. There's employees that have stayed with us for the last 12 years or more. People don't leave if you treat your employees and your partners with respect and with good principles. There's actually one guiding principle that we took away that really helped us a lot. There's a book called 1 Minute Manager by Ken Blanchard. He's actually a Christian guy as well. And it's a really simple way of managing. And this is something that you should be using to actually interact with each other. And there's just two advice, very simple, on how to be a very effective manager, right? One is, when you see something praiseworthy, praise that person immediately. When you see something that requires correction, correct that person immediately, right? And this is how it goes. If you see somebody and they've said there's something that is praiseworthy, you put your hand on them and say, you know what, John, this thing you did, and you specifically name it out. This project you did where you went above and beyond and you spent all night doing it, I really appreciate that. And you tell them how it made you feel. That made me feel as an owner like you're really involved and you're really dedicated to this company. And I really want to thank you for that. That took what? Less than a minute, right? It's 1 minute manager. The second part is if someone does something wrong. Warner, although I shouldn't have picked on you for that because he never does anything wrong. But it's like, Warner, the fact that you missed the deadline on this one project and we really needed that report really affected the team. And so again, I'm telling you how it made me feel or the team feel, right? But you're a valued employee and you've done a phenomenal job throughout. So again, you're accentuating the positive of what he is and what he's contributed. But next time, I would love to see you be more attentive to the time and be able to put that that type of work ahead of time so that you can avoid this in the future. So now you're giving instructions how to correct that next time. If you do follow those type of principles and the biblical principles that's outlined in how to treat others, people will never leave you. They won't. And you can start growing a lasting company. Third is principles. As I told you before, one of the things that we did when we decided to start this company 27 years ago was we're going to found it on strong Christian principles, right? Now, principles mean nothing until you're tested, until you see how you behave when you're tested, right? I've seen so many companies in this industry say they're Christian-based or that they're principled or they're moral, but when it becomes really difficult, when things really get down to the wire, all of that goes away, and it's just words, right? Our first test came not too long. I think Walmart was our first big customer that we got. I think we graduated in 1994. So 4 or 5 years later, that was our first big customer, and we were so happy. It's like, wow, Walmart wants to use us as a vendor. And so they called on us and they said, you know what, we like your security product. We want you to change some of the products so that you can lock down and help secure all of our stores. It's like, oh, great! This is awesome. We're going to hit the big times. Walmart is the largest retailer in the world, right? 200 million people walk through their stores every month, and so we thought this is it. We've hit the big times, and so we wrote the program. And I was still working for the other company at the time. So nights and weekends, we're working away, and we got it to the point where we got the software done, and we uploaded it to or sent it over to Walmart, and they actually sent us the check or sent us the money, which is for us huge. It's going to launch our company. It was huge, and I remember what Walmart did at the time. They had 2,600 stores, so this is a map of all the stores that they have, and what they do is when they do software distribution, they'll upload it via satellite link, so it goes to all 2,600 stores immediately. Right? What we didn't know is I had a bug in the software, and it went up onto the satellite. It went to all 2,600 stores, and we crashed 2,600 computers in every store in Walmart. Right? And we got a phone call from their legal counsel. This is something you never want to get. Phone call from Walmart Legal, and they said, we are in the process of suing you. We not only will have stop payment on your check because they thought we would run away and deposit the check and run, but we're going to sue you. And at the time we didn't really own much, but it would have been, we were done for, right? How do you react in that type of situation? What guiding principles set in that says, you know what? We will fight you, or we'll run, or we'll, shirk our responsibilities. At the time, again, we said, you know what? We decided to do this. We're going to see this through. If this is the last thing we do before we go out of business, we'll do it keeping to God's principles. And so the response we gave was, you know what? We're honorable men. We acknowledge what we did. We will rectify, we'll correct it. We'll give you your money back, but not only that, we will pay for the redistribution of to all the stores and fix it. And the legal counsel on the other end of the phone did not expect someone to own up to their mistakes and respond like that. He was just taken aback. And so he was like, you know what? That's not something I was expecting. So, we'll give you 24 hours to try to fix this, and then we'll see what happens. We'll take other measures afterwards. So they gave us 24 hours, and I don't know if any of you guys are software people out there, but we had 300,000 lines of code, and I was the only programmer. And so I went into, Rich, my business partners, we actually worked out of his parents' basement. And so I went to his basement, and I literally was coding away. I was looking just frantically. And if 300,000 lines of code and try to find one bug, it's literally about, it's like taking a haystack the size of a football field and trying to find a needle in that haystack. It's literally impossible. And so 22 hours later, I still couldn't find it. I was just completely burnt out, absolutely nowhere to go. And that's when my business partner came over, and we knew when it was time to call on a higher power. And my business partners came over, and they said, Danny, it's time to pray. And so they literally, while I was seated and just half awake, they put their hands on me and they pray. I don't even know what they're praying about, give wisdom or whatever. But I can kid you not, as they were praying, in my mind's eye, I could see the code. And I could see it being pointed to one section of code in one line, and I mistyped one character. I wish I could show you that. Actually, in one of the other presentations, I was actually able to bring the source code up. I mistyped an ampersand with a star, asterisk. In C programming, that's a pointer redirection, and that caused the error. I took the asterisk out and replaced it with an ampersand, compiled, and it all worked. And we uploaded the software to the Walmart satellite, went down, and it fixed everything. It was amazing. We knew that if you stay true with God, He stays true with you. If you stick to your principles, right, in the long term, you're going to be successful. Walmart has been a customer of ours for the last 12 years. They've bought everything we've ever made because the response they've come back to us, and we never tell anybody we're Christians, never. They figure out eventually on their own because of the way we behave, because of the way we operate our company, right? Later on, they came back and said, Danny, we don't know why, but we just keep wanting to work with you. We want to give you all our projects because you seem to deliver and do what you say. Can you imagine if you literally ran a company or even behaved yourself personally as a person, a man or woman of integrity that does what they say, that people will come to you, right? Mark 12 in the Bible, it says, if you lift me up, if I be lifted up, I'll draw all men unto myself. If you lift up your principles and the way you live, right? People will be amazed at you because you will be so different. Now, these are the three core principles. There's not much to remember. If only thing you do at the end of this hour is you leave with these three things. Passion. Have passion in what you do. Find the passion, be fearless, and go after it. Find good partners, right? Relate to others, right? Be relational in the way you operate your life. Run your life with principles. Learn and apply that principle in your life so you live it. You don't have to say it. You live those principles. Then you'll be able to reap the rewards, the fruits of your labor. And one of those fruits will be in transformation, in business transformation. Your business will be transformed. And I can tell you right now, our 27-year experiment, the results of that 27-year experiment is we started this company based fully on Christian principles. This is a small list of our customers, right? You probably have used or have experienced or been interacted with at least one of these customers, if not Coca-Cola. Was it in there? Yes. FBI, actually, a funny story is the CIA was a customer, but we were never told they were until they kept calling for support. And I had to say, you know what, you're not in our database. And they'd finally say, oh, we're the CIA, give us support. But it's amazing the influence that you'll have as a result of following these guiding principles, right? Your business will be transformed. Your ideas will be transformed. The way you operate will be transformed. Now, the other thing that will transform is the individual, is the person, both yourself and the people around you. This gentleman here, his name is Mike. He was one of our roommates. And sophomore year, when we started our company, and we were all, one by one, we'd all become Christians, and we were just going all out for God. He was the last person that was among our apartment friends, our 5 friends, that just absolutely resisted. He actually didn't want religion. When we asked him to potentially go to church with us, Danny, we're friends, but please, don't ever talk about God to me. I don't want anything to do with that. He was an atheist, and he was burned in when he was younger by bad examples of Christianity or religion. But when we got to our senior year, right, and we were launching our company, And we thought, you know what, we're graduating. What could we lose, right? We'll probably won't see him again for a long, long time. And our chance for doing an influence will be over. So we decided, you know what, let's give it one more chance. And so we approached Mike. There was actually a missionary that was coming, and he was speaking at Campus Crusade for Christ at the Cornell campus. And so we planned this whole thing that we would ask him, and obviously if he said yes, we would the roommates will all take him. But so we went up to Mike, and I looked at Mike, and we all kind of sheepishly came up to Mike and said, Mike, you know, there's this kind of event happening. It's Friday night, and you know, a lot of us are going to go, and you know, it just happens to be a missionary, and it's a Christian event, whatever. And we just thought we're going to get a earful, and he said, you know, we're just wondering if you wanted to go. And Mike looked at us, and he said, sure. We said, oh, well, you know, we didn't expect this answer. So, oh, it's Friday night, and I actually had another commitment. I was doing a Bible study at another church, so I couldn't go. But my other roommates went and took him, and we took him to the event, and he was sitting in the back with the other roommates. About 200 or 300 people were there, about this size. And you know, he sat through the whole thing, you know, and at the end, you know, we were singing songs, and we'd also planned, we asked the speaker ahead of time if he'd be willing to pray with our friend Mike at the end of his talk, if Mike was willing, right? So towards the end of the thing, our roommates turned to Mike and said, Mike, well, we kind of asked the speaker if you want to you know, go and pray with you. And Mike turns to my roommates and he says, sure. It's like, oh, okay, just go to the side room. We're going to be singing our hymns or our praise songs, and then when you're done, you can come out and we can go. So Mike goes into the other room, and he sits down to go to pray. And literally, I think less than 2 minutes go by, and Mike comes out of the room, and he's crying. He's just in tears. And my roommate's first reaction is, oh my gosh, the speaker must have yelled at him. He must have just really made something bad remarks, or you know, they were like, what happened? What did he do to you? And Mike said, you know, it's amazing. And this Mike retelling the whole story, and he actually had to tell the whole story back to me that Friday night. He was saying, you know what? I went into this room to sit down to pray, and he says, I don't even know what the speaker was praying about. But as he was praying, I felt this physical burden lift off my back, and this undeniable sense that it was Jesus Christ. We were blown away. Absolutely. And he came up that night in front of 200 of his peers, and he accepted Christ that night. If you want to have experienced transformation, there's no greater joy than this. When they came back, and I was already back at the apartment, and they were telling me the story, and at the end, they told me what happened. Literally, 5 of us, well, 4 of us, Mike was still in shock, so 4 of us, we were literally jumping up and down, screaming at the top of our heads in joy. I mean, I can tell you, there's very few things in this world that will bring you that much joy than to see a person transform. Now, here's the key. I asked him, the next morning, actually, he woke us up at 6 in the morning. He's like, oh, we gotta wake up. I'm like, oh my goodness, for college students, 6 in the morning is sacrilege, right? He's like, Danny, we gotta go, we have to go buy a Bible. I don't have one. I'm like, oh God, we created a monster. But later on, I asked him why. I was so curious, why after all these years, why was he open to going and open to accepting? And his response was, Danny, I've been watching you guys. I've been watching your company, the way you formed, the way you lived. And he said, there was something different about you guys. You operated differently. And it made me want that. If you truly internalize these core concepts, right, of being relational, being passionate, being principled, people will see a difference without you having to say it. Your company will succeed. You as an individual will succeed because people will be drawn to you. There's no better prescription for success than this. We've had so many opportunities as a result because once we ran our company in a business setting, God was using us tremendously, right? We would actually, there was one time we were in a conference room and we were having a business meeting with the senior VP of AT&T. And my business partner, all of a sudden in the middle of the meeting, says, I just had this impression that I need to pray for you. And I'm like, oh my goodness, the meeting's over. We just totally lost this deal. And but I didn't say that, obviously. I kept quiet because I came to trust his impressions. And he just felt a driving from the Lord to pray for this woman. And I was expecting she's going to be offended and she's going to get up. And you know what happened? She started crying. She said, oh my goodness, I've been wanting someone to pray for me. I haven't gone to church since I was 10. And I'm going through divorce and thus hardship in my life. And I've just been feeling the need for someone to pray for me. And so we sat there in the conference and we prayed for her. It's amazing. It's amazing what God can do when you devote your life to his principles. It is amazing. Now, the last fruit that I'll talk to you about is the fruit of giving back, social transformation, right? One of the things that we will be using to judge in these competitions is we want to hear how your business idea can have a social impact. We want to hear that, right? What is your plan? Maybe not immediate, maybe in the future, but the goal of anything you start is to figure out a way to give back. And I remember after years of running our company, there was a period when, because we were tithing, giving locally, whatever, but there was something missing. And I remember it was a period for about a month. I just had this impression, I have to go on a mission trip. And I believe God put that on my heart. And I just couldn't get it out of my head. And I remember I was having lunch, a business lunch, and my cell phone rang, and it was an unknown number. And I usually don't take those, but I was just really compelled to take that call. So I took that call, and on the other line, the person said, you don't know who I am, but I'm the president of Share Him, which is a lay organization that sends missionaries into the field. And he says, we have this huge evangelistic meeting set up, and the main speaker got sick, and 2 different people gave me your name, so it's God's will that you go, right? How do you not take that type of call? But because my heart was prepared up to that month, for a whole month of wanting to go to missions, when I got that call and he said, it's God's will for you to go, I'm going, yes, I'll be there. And he said, well, you got to leave in 2 weeks. And so I was like, I'm going to drop everything. Of course, when I called my business partners and told them what happened, they're like, Danny, just go. Who cares about business meetings? Cancel everything and go. And I remember I had to send my passport in, and it takes 1 month to get your passport back with the visa. And I remember I sent it in, and my flight was Monday morning, 6 a.m., and by Saturday, which is the last day of the mail delivery, my passport still hadn't come back. And I remember my wife telling me, maybe we should just stay home, not go anywhere, and just wait for this thing. I'm like, you know what? If it's God's will for me to go, it's going to come. And as we were about to go out the door, a UPS truck drove up, the last delivery of the day, and the only delivery to our house, delivered my passport with a visa on it, right? So I got to go on this mission trip, and after 2.5 weeks, we had baptized something like 7,200 people. Amazing. I have 6,000 pictures of baptisms we've done over the last 7 years. This was 7 years ago. Thousands of people at a time. And by the end of this 2 week, actually there was one of the person in our group, the pastor on his visa wrote down that he was a pastor, so he was barred from preaching by the Indian government. As a result, he had to have his youth group person, who the only kid that would volunteer was a 12-year-old, to go and do the sermons. So here's this 12-year-old, he's literally scared to death, and he's reading the sermon line by line. And the translator is just preaching up a storm, and he baptized 800 people. right? Which is amazing. Now, towards the end of this 2.5 weeks, I was excited, but I was like, Lord, why did you have me come here? Right? You could have used a 12-year-old. Anybody from here could have gone. You could have just someone to go up there and read, right? And then it hit me. I remember visiting a school in one of the cities, and after baptizing all these people, my first thought is because my heart and passion is in education. It's like we need to start a school out here. This is where if we're gonna have so many people accepting Christ for the first time, we have to have a grounding. And we need to start a school. So I actually asked the church leaders, have you ever considered starting a school in this area? And he said, oh, Elder Kim, we've been trying for years. Land never comes up for sale. It's impossible. And literally the last day I was there, they came to me and they said, you won't believe what happened. Land came up for sale. It never happens. And it's an emergency sale, so it's actually quite discounted. And so I begged them, can we go see this land? So we drove an hour and a half through rocky terrain to go see this land. And this was the picture we took. It was 13 acres of land with running electricity, 3 wells that were running, and it was just pristine. It was perfect. And it was in front of this dirt road that would now eventually, today, is the second busiest highway in India. Right? So we stood on this land, and that's when it hit me. This is the reason I was here. And me and 2 other church leaders stood there, and I said, we have to buy this land. And they were saying, oh, this is too expensive. There's no way, impossible, And I kept asking, how much is this land? 13 acres of land. And you got to remember, in rural India, the highest paid person, and the doctors or whatever in that area is $200 a month. So, when they told me, they said, it's that, Elder Kim, it's $60,000 for 13 acres of land. And, it's still a lot of money, but to them, in equivalent from a salary standpoint, it would have been like $6 million to us. So it's impossible to raise and had to be raised that day, all right? And the money's sent overnight. And I said, you know what? This is it. This is why I'm here. Buy the land. And he looked at me and he said, Elder Kim, if anybody else would have said this, I would have said no. But I just feel like that God was positioning us for this one moment. And with the 3 of us stood there and we wept. And I went back the next day. I just called a couple of my business friends. And I said, you know what? This is what's happening. This is why we need the money. And they said, Danny, we're wiring you the money now. Just send it over. So we got $60,000. We wired the money over. And I don't know if you know about international conversion rates, but when you send U.S. money over to another country, it gets converted into the target money, and you don't know how much it'll be because it converts. The conversion rates change and fluctuate. What happens so that the 60,000, when it got converted into rupees, it got converted down to the exact amount of the price of the land to the exact rupee, down to the fraction of the penny. Right? We were like, this is God. It can't be anything else. And it took a year and a half, and we opened the school to 150 kids. And we had to go to 150 of the villages that we had converted, and we told them, you can only send 1 child within your poor village. So most of them are like orphans or with parents who are sick, and they signed up. And then within 3 years, we had built the whole facility, and now it's a full running school with 600 kids, all from the neighboring villages. And because this school acted as the basis of doing evangelism, other evangelistic groups started coming. And as a result, in the last 7 years, from the statistics I was given, we've baptized over 140,000 people. It's amazing, the social transformation you can affect if you truly run your company, run your life with godly principles, godly character, right? So the opportunity that I see for you guys is more than just a chance to start a company or start a business. You're going to learn all the skills. You're going to learn all the basics. But our goal is to teach you how to be transformed, both individually and run a transformed company. We want to give you the role models that has run their lives with the same principles. And these are captains of industries, right? Kevin Compton is coming next week. He was one of the original partners at Kleiner Perkins. He's the one who invested in Google and eBay and all the major companies that you see today. Very sought after. I couldn't even get 2 minutes of his time if I wanted to, but he's going to come and speak to you. Right? He's one of the top venture capitalists in the Silicon Valley area. Steve Nelson was, for the past 10 years, he was the head of the Harvard Business School, the most sought after business school in the world. He ran it. He was the managing director of the Harvard Business School, and a very deep Christian guy. He actually was really funny story. He actually we know him from the Promise Keepers. He actually used to come to our apartment when we were starting our company to do Bible studies with us. So amazing guy, totally Christian principled. Again, rising up to the top in the industry, right? Pat Gelsinger, CEO of VMware, who's the 5th largest software company in the world. Again, deep Christian, running his life with Christian principles. We want you to learn from these role models on how to conduct and live your life and how to start or grow your company or your career. And this is applicable whether you're going into business, you're going into engineering, whether you're going into medicine, whatever the case is. If you follow these guiding principles and live your life that way, you can't help but be successful. So please, as what we want to do is spend the next 10 minutes. We wanted to open up for question and answer. If you have any questions, we wanted to give you a chance to field your questions. I'm going to do something. Should we try the texting? If you have a question, just
If you have a question, raise your hand. You'll be the first.
Be bold. Be passionate. There's a question over here.
All right, let me get to the question. Raise your hand. Yeah, I see your hand. Who's doing the question? There you go.
How did you make other people know your company? How did you get Walmart to know who you are?
That's a great question. That's the age-old question. How do you get how do you get known? How do you get out there? You know what? It's just there's no other way but just hard work. We actually used to create a box product called Full Armor, a security product. And we had to shrink wrap this box product, and we used to have it shrink wrapped and placed on the Walmart stores. And back in those days, when if you ever get into the box product field, you never make any money because you pay them to hold your box for you, and then if your product doesn't sell, you have to pay them back, and they send your box back. But we got to Walmart because. Our product was selling well, actually. We poured our time and energy into making our product well-designed, and we put it on the Walmart stores. And actually, I remember the first order when Walmart asked us to put it on the shelves. I think they ordered like 2,000 boxes or something. And I don't know if you ever shrink-wrap boxes. You have to use an industrial hairdryer, and you put this plastic over it, and then you literally blow-dry the boxes one at a time. Right? And when we got 2,000 orders, and we had to fill it in a couple of days, we decided, you know what, we can't do this. It'll take all night. So we donned our gloves, and we went upstairs to my partner's mother's oven, and we started putting the boxes into the oven so they shrink wrap faster. But it's hard work. And in this age, it's using tools like social media, like Facebook, email, Twitter. Those are things you can use to very effectively and cost-effectively get your product out there. And those are one of the things that we'll cover in our workshops as well. Excellent question.
Another question. All right. Oh, great.
What is one piece of advice you can give to us as like students or younger people?
I think if I was if I was in your situation at your age, the key thing is to be fearless. We miss out on so many opportunities because we shrink away from failure or the potential for failure. I see so many people who have the potential to do more, but they don't because they're afraid of failing. If you can get over, and actually in the world of entrepreneurship, among the entrepreneurs, that there's a running joke. If you haven't failed a couple of times, you don't have the experience to run a company. It is the failure that is actually the mark of experience. And so my recommendation is find every opportunity to fail. Really. Find opportunities where you're gonna fail. You're gonna try and do your darndest and try your best, but you're gonna fail. And you know what? Fail again. Do it again. Keep failing until you get it right, until you hit that mark, right? And there's no better teacher than failure. And I think, I tell my wife about our sons when, she's always worried about, our son, failed this exam or didn't turn this homework in or, missed this whole, class period. I'm like, you know what? This is the perfect time for them to fail. Let them fail. Let them experience the taste of failure so they can learn from it. So yes, fail as much as you can and as often as you can. Now, don't tell your parents I told you that.
We have 5 minutes, and here's a question.
Why and where did you get your inspiration to start a Christian company based on those principles where so many other Christians, they fail to do so even though they are Christian?
Yeah, that's a great question. It would take me forever to go through all the conversion experience, but when I got to Cornell, I was a mediocre Christian. All my other suite mates that we started the company with, they were absolute, I'd have to say, I know this is being recorded, but they were heathens. I had a roommate that would literally get drunk every morning. He'd take a shot of Jack Daniels and he'd be drunk, and I'd have to drag him off from parties, and he'd be in my room completely wasted. And I remember thinking, what am I going to do with this guy? And I remember thinking, I'm just going to pray for him and not say anything. I never preached to him. And one day, end of my freshman year, he came up to me and he said, Daniel boy, I just decided something. I said, what? I decided I'm going to quit drinking. I was like, what? He said, yeah, I don't want to live that life anymore. And he did. Completely cold turkey. And he's married to a Christian woman, has how many kids? 5 kids. Wonderful kids. Just living a beautiful life. And when I saw transformation of people's lives like that, one by one, I could tell you hours of stories of watching people transformed, then I realized, you know what? I don't want to spend the rest of my life working, making money, and not doing something for God. I wanted to integrate that in. And so that was my passion. I wanted to do something where I can integrate my beliefs, my faith, and my skills and talent into one thing. Good question. Oh, there's an update that needs to be done.
All right, so how much money did it take to start your company?
Good question. There's two main tracks you can go down in when you start a company today. One is what's called bootstrapping. I don't know if you've heard that term. That means you're going to fund yourself. That's the mode we took. Working out of our parents' basement. We had credit cards that we used and borrowed some money here and there. We tightened our belts. Didn't eat much. Didn't spend much. That's one track. It takes longer to get a company launched that way. But the benefit to us and the reason why we did it that way is because we wanted full control of our company. Us and our family and friends own 100% of our company. We've never taken venture capital money. Now, if you want to also start a company and you want to launch it and you've got a broad market you want to go after, venture capital money is another option. But you want to make sure you choose the right venture capitalists or angel investors, people who are willing to invest in your company. So for us, it took us 27 years. The first 5 or 6 years was just bootstrapping. Oh my goodness. And then once we started hitting our strides, we cut all our credit cards. We paid off all our debts. We've been debt-free for the last 12, 15 years. So good question.
Hey, we have time for one more
One
question.
more question.
If you can sum up the entire idea of business in 4 words or less, what would they be?
Wow, that's an interview question. Are you taking interviewing skills?
No.
The core of my business in 4 words or less. Interesting. Okay. I would say we are innovative, principled, honest, hardworking. And I only say that because those are the words we hear back from our partners and our customers. Actually, I usually don't tell people how big our company is because that's another question that usually comes up. We're only 14 people. Only 14 people. We've been about between 14 to 20 for the last 27 years. And most companies that work with us, they think we're 200 to 300 people at the type of output we do, right? And that is because we are focused, we're principled, we're hardworking, and we do quality stuff. So that's what I wish for you guys as well.
Let's give them a hand. It's an honor to have Danny Kim and his wife, Hannah. We appreciate, first of all, their parents at Valley Christian, and also great examples. Could you hold just a second, please? Thank you. I just wanted to give you, real quick, 3 points in Kevin Compton's message. He sent them to me. He says, what do I use as a framework for making business decisions? You might want to know that if you're going to start a business. What have I learned from investing in early stage ventures like Centrex, Google, Amazon, and Juniper? And what is the best example of leadership I've ever experienced? So that's next week. Looking forward to seeing all of you come back. Thank you very much.